Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to episode 5 of Frontend Engineering Masterclass. So in this episode we'll be looking into very crucial topic. This is actually a minor thing, but the impact it makes is really big. It's really huge. Okay, it can either make or break your application. So what are we talking about? We're talking about API calls. Okay. In reality, we're talking about network calls. Network calls can be anything. Either you're making a request for your US server, your backend, or making a request to any sort of third-party servers. Okay, so it's very important here to consider the fact that you should always make it type safe. Okay, and you should always have a reliable feedback. This will improve your UX, the user experience of your application a lot. How? We'll look into the entire thing in this whole episode. Okay, so before we jump into that, first thing we'll look into is what is a REST API. Okay, so throughout this whole episode we'll be talking about REST API. We'll be using that as an example, but this whole concept that we'll discuss will be applicable for any sort of request you're making. Okay, if you're using GraphQL, it will apply there as well. If you're using if you're requesting for some third-party servers like payment gateways or any sort of third-party applications, right, it will apply for there as well, because that's a network request, right? So it will apply for there as well. Okay, so let's get started. What exactly is a REST API? So imagine REST API is like your client or your front end calling the server, okay, with some code words. The code words here can be get, post, delete, put, or patch as well. Okay, and it will give it a URL. So URL can be like service. So your client can call the server with a code word like get. It can say, hey, get me all the surveys. Okay, and the server will identify the keyword here, that is survey. It will fetch all the survey from the DB. It will return the surveys in a JSON format. So what is JSON format? So JSON is like a standardized format. It is applicable in all the languages. It doesn't matter if you're using Python, Node, Node, JavaScript, or Go, whatever it is. JSON is like a standard which all the language can understand. Okay, so it's a very good way of exchanging messages between two different servers or two different nodes. Okay, so this server will return the response in JSON format and the client will process it however it wants. That is what REST API is. So REST API stands for, the full form of REST is representational state transfer. Okay, so that's what the whole REST API stands for. And moving on, you get a very important question here. This question actually will be asked for you guys in interviews as well. Put versus patch. So people might ask you, what is the difference between put and patch methods? Okay, so very quick answer for this. Put is where you update the entire thing. So let's say you have a user. Okay, you want to update the entire user data like ID, name, email, age, so on and so forth. Okay, that's when you use put to update the entire data. You use patch to update the partial amount of data. For example, age. So age is the partial amount of data that we're updating, right? In this case, so we use patch when you want to update the partial amount of data. That's the difference between put and patch. Okay, this was one of the questions that I usually ask junior devs whenever I'm interviewing them. So I just thought maybe I could share that with you. Okay, other than that, this is the whole concept of REST APIs in brief and put versus patch in brief. Okay, now let's jump into the React. Okay, and then we'll see how to implement a Typesafe API. Okay, since it's Typesafe API, I'll be using TypeScript. Okay, if you're not familiar with TypeScript, it's fine. Just look into how we're doing it. Once you get familiarized with TypeScript, you'll be able to integrate it. Okay, and we need an API, right? We need an API like a third-party service or something, right? So I'll be using this fake API. So this is called JSON placeholder. So it's like a fake API. It's a free open source fake API. We use it for testing and prototyping and everything. Okay, so they have multiple APIs here. They have like a post, comment, photos, and all those stuff. We'll be using post. You can use any of these things. I'll be using post. Okay, so right, so let me get my editor here. Okay, let me zoom out. Okay, all right, so I have two folders. I have complex and simple. So we'll look into how to deal with Typesafe APIs with reliable feedback in a simple projects, okay, like your side projects or your portfolio or anything like that. And also how to deal with it in an efficient way in a complex project, like when you're building it for a company or building your own startup or SaaS product or something like that. Okay, so let's go with simple. So in order to deal with API, since I'll be requesting an API call, I use my own favorite library, that is Axios. I won't go for any other libraries apart from Axios. I know Fetch can be used here, but I don't like fetch. That's my personal opinion, but if you like fetch, you can use it. The concept applies to fetch as well. Okay, so I have Axios installed here, and I have Next.js installed with page router. Okay, I'm not going with the app router here because app router's way is a bit different and it doesn't apply to what I'm teaching you right now. And most of the people who are subscribed to us are beginners, and you guys request a lot of beginners content, so I thought page router would make more sense for you guys. Okay, so I'm using page router, and I've installed Axios. Okay, you can just do npm my Axios to install it. So let's first run the server. So I'm going to say npm run dev. Okay, all right, great. So we have the server running. So if I open this, and it should show up a welcome screen. There we go. We have the Next.js welcome screen. I didn't modify any of the screen. It's just like as it is there. Okay, so we have the Next.js welcome screen, and let's first actually talk about how are we going to do this. So we'll be editing the index.tsx file here. Okay, we'll be editing the index.tsx file. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, to make the API call, make the Typesafe API calls. Okay, so how do we get started with the making an API call? The first thing, always remember this: whenever you're making an API call or whenever you're setting up to make an API call, you need to have a global config. So how do you make that global config? So we'll create a new folder here. We'll create a new folder called lib. Okay, lib stands for library, and we'll create a new file. Okay, we'll call it as axios.ts. Okay, I'm gonna just say add, and we'll import Axios here, Axios from Axios. Okay, and let me zoom in. Come on, it's not zooming in. Yeah, so we'll import Axios from Axios, and then what we'll do is we'll export const Axios instance. Okay, we'll export const Axios instance, and we'll create axios.create. Okay, so it's basically like creating your own instance of Axios where you can have your own configs there. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this. If I scroll up, it's gonna tell me what is the base URL. So the base URL for this particular request is json placeholder.typecode.com. So I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna say here base URL equals json.placeholder.typecode.com. So what is this base URL? So when creating an Axios instance, the base URL stands for what is the common URL that you'll be using for all your requests. So my common URL here would be JSON placeholder. In your case, it can be like auth backend, right? Let's say you're dealing with microservices where you have multiple backends. Okay, so you can create multiple instances of this. The base URL can be authbackend.com. I'm just getting an example. Okay, authbackend.com, and next can be postbackend.com, next can be userbackend.com. So you can create multiple instances like this, and then you can reuse it. Okay, so that you don't have to define the same URL every single time, which makes it very hard to read. Okay, and if in case your base URL is updated, you can just update this in one place and everything will be affected. Okay, and then if you have like headers, okay, if you have like headers, like you can apply it here, content JSON. So now this will be applied for all the requests automatically. I don't have to rewrite this every single time. And same goes for your tokens, like your authorization tokens. You can also add that here. And if we have any security or let's say role based auth or role based, something like that, you can add your role as well, like role admin, role owner, role user, member, or something like that. Okay, so this is what an Axios config would look like. And you also have something called Axios interceptor, which I'm not going to touch it here because it's out of the scope of this lecture here, or of this episode here, but you can also look into that. Okay, so this is what Axios instance looks like, and this is how you can make your own Axios config. Okay, and now going back to the index.tsx file, you can find that here in pages, index.tsx file. Now what we'll do is we will first remove these code. I don't want these things here, so we'll remove these. Okay, we'll only keep an empty element like this. Okay, and we'll create a state. So we'll create state. I'm going to say const use state. This will be an array. I'm going to tell you what is this, and this will be posts set posts. Okay, this will be post set post, and you can see the type is never. I'm not typing this colon never here, is just being added from my IDE here. Am I recording? Yeah, I'm recording. Okay, and I'm gonna say one more thing. Is loading, set is loading to false. I'm gonna set it to false, and you can see it's automatically identified as Boolean. So this is called type inference. Okay, so by the value you provide, it will automatically assign the state. Okay, I'm going to show how to manually assign the type as well. Okay, and we'll have error here, so we'll say error. For now it's null. Okay, and the whole type is inferring as null, but it should be a string or null, right? So let's assign the type now. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a type. First we'll define the types here. So the first type I'll define is error. So I'm going to say error. Okay, and this can be a string or it can be a null. I'm going to say custom error. Okay, and I'm going to add the type here. So you provide the type something like this. This is called generics. Okay, TypeScript generics. So now we can see it's custom error type, so which is a string or a null. And next up we have post. So we have type of post. So what is the type of post? So let's go to JSON placeholder. Let's click on the post here. So we get a list of posts. So what do we get? We get the user ID, which is a number. So we'll say user ID is number. And we get ID, which is a number. We get title, which is a string, and last we get body, which is a string. Okay, this is the type of the post. So now what I'm going to do is we'll assign that here. So I'm going to assign post, and since it's an array, I'm going to say array of post. Now we can see it's not never anymore, it's post of arrays right now. So this is how you assign types for the state. And now what we're going to do is we'll say I will make an API call right now. Okay, here I'm going to say use effect. Okay, use effect. And here there are many preferences people follow. The people is going to either create a separate function like get post, where they'll define the axis, call and everything, and then they'll import it here. That's a good way to do it. So let's do that. So what we'll do is we'll create another folder called helpers, and we'll create a file here called get posts.ts. So we'll export a function here. So we'll export const get posts equals async. It's an async function, and what we'll do here is we'll say const posts equals, nope, actually what we'll do is we'll just say return Axios instance, that instance that we created. You can give it a better name, by the way. Okay, and we'll actually make a request to it. So this method would be get. Okay, method would be get, and here you can see the URL is /post. So the entire URL is this one. So this is the entire URL, but since we already have a base URL here, we can remove this and we can just say /post. This will get all the post. Okay, and this would return us promise. Okay, this will return us promise, but what type of promise is this going to return us? A promise of post, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this here, paste this, but it's a redundant, right? So I'm going to export this. Okay, from here, this will return us post array of post. Okay, this will return us array of posts. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to import it here. I'm going to import get posts. Okay, and I'm also going to import the type post. I'm going to remove this from here since I've already defined it over there. Okay, now we can see everything is type safe, everything is typed, nothing is left out. My Copilot it's giving up all the information for you right away, right? So now what I'm going to do is the first thing that we're going to do is we'll set the loading to true. Okay, we'll set the loading to true so that the loading can start as soon as the user pet kicks in. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll say get posts. So we'll start the API call get post, but this is an async call, right? And of course, you guys know that you should not do this. You should not do this async and await here, which is wrong, purely wrong. Okay, it's gonna get into race conditions. Okay, so instead we'll use then. Sorry guys, sorry, really sorry. Okay, instead we'll use then. So we'll say then, and you can see the post is already typed, right? You can see if you don't do this, it will say Axios response, but here the post is already typed. Okay, so here we'll actually do post, and this will actually be something like this. So here it shouldn't be like this, it should be like const response equals await instance equals return response dot data. It should be something like this, because Axios will add dot data to you. So if you want post of array, you have to return response dot data. Okay, so now you can see it's already typed, and there is no error in setting the set post as well, because they are of same type. Okay, and then what if there's an error? So here if there's an error, we'll say catch error. The type of error should be unknown. Okay, type of error should be unknown. Hold on. Okay, add a function over there, and type of error will be unknown. Okay, you cannot assign any type here, it will say it's invalid. Okay, first you have to say the error type is unknown, I have no idea about it, and then we'll set it. So here we'll say set post, set error equals error as custom error. It should be error as Axios error, import from Axios dot message. Okay, which would be a string, which is nothing but custom error. Okay, since our custom error can be a string or a null, it can be anything. So we'll just add a null sending operator here. Okay, so this will be an Axios error. This will be an instance of Axios error, so that we can do this here. Okay, and how about setting this to false? So once the API call is done, we have to set this to false, right? So what you can do is you can either do it like this, which is really bad approach. You can do something like this, set false and set false, redundant, or you can use one more thing. You can use something called finally. Use finally. What finally do is, so finally is a function that runs even after then and also after catch. So it runs both the times. Okay, it doesn't matter whether your application, your request fails or success, it will run anyways. Finally, it's like a cleanup function. So you can run your set is loading to false in the finally block. This will guarantee that it will mark the finally as false, no matter if your request will succeed or failure. Okay, but it will make sure that your loading is set to false. Okay, this way you have everything defined here. So now let's render the set of posts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do posts dot map. Okay, and here we'll say, so what do we get inside it? We get post, right? And then I'm gonna just add an I tag here, and then I'm gonna just say post dot title, and we'll add key as well. We'll provide a key. So key would be post dot id. Okay, and then this would require a UL tag. Okay, there we go. Why is this throwing an error? Void is not able. What? Oh yeah, okay, I have to add return here. Sorry, return. Okay, there we go. So we are returning an I tag, the item tag, list item tag. It should be li tag. Sorry, it should be li tag, list item tag. The key we are giving is the post ID. We are using the post ID as the key. Do not use index. Just use, if you have an ID, just use the ID as a key. If you don't have any ID, you can use index. Okay, and then we have title. So if I save this, if I go back, there we go. We have all the titles being listed. Okay, listed properly. So, and you can also give the serial number if required. So for that, I'm going to use index. Okay, and then I'm going to provide serial number. So I'm going to say I plus 1, and I'm going to say space here. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're getting all the index, the serial number of the post. Now, so this means that the post is being properly fetched, is properly typed and everything. And what if I try to reference for something that doesn't exist? So what if I try, right? What if I try to reference for something like post.h? You can see it's already throwing an error, right? It's already throwing an error. It's saying that, hey, it seems like it doesn't exist. Okay, so you can easily find out whether or not your application will crash or not, something like that. Okay, and next thing that we can do is we can show the loading indicators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, actually I can do it here, but I'm going to do it here. So here what I will do is I'll say if is loading, okay, if it is loading, I'm going to just remove this. If it is loading, okay, then show loading, okay, it's and, so it's like conditional operator, okay. So if I refresh it, you cannot actually see the loading here, but what I'm going to do is just to show you the loading state, I'm going to say true here, okay. Then I'm going to just comment this out. If I run this, you can see it says loading. So this is how you will see if it is actually loading. Okay, now I'm gonna just remove this and we'll say is loading. So now you are able to provide feedback on loading and loading state, and then you can also can properly type safely render all the list of post on the screen. So two things are complete. We are able to keep everything type safe. We are able to show the loading feedback. What about error feedback? So for error, you can just show something like this. Error, you can say, let's do this. Failed to fetch the post, and you can type in your error. Okay, something like this. And how can we populate the error? So let's do one thing. Let's try to provide some ID that doesn't exist. So we can go here, go to type placeholder, what if I type 1? So you can get the ID of 1, right? So what if I type ID that doesn't exist? So we get, okay, we get empty, right? So it doesn't throw any errors, but it will throw an empty, it will give us an empty object. So if I refresh, you can see it's loading. And there we go, failed to fetch, request failed with status 404 because it doesn't exist. But this isn't good, right? This user can't understand this. Like how can you expect a user to understand status code 404? They have no idea. So let's solve that. So what we'll do is here we'll add an if, okay, if error has, I'm gonna do one thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this to a constant. I'm going to say error equals error as Axios error, so that I don't have to do that every single time. I'm going to say error dot status is equal to 404. Okay, if it is 404, then I'm going to say not found. So we can say failed to fetch the post because requested resource or requested post was not found. Okay, oops, sorry, found. Okay, so that solves here. And what else we can show here? We'll say 401, that is unauthorized. So we can say not authorized to view, or you don't have enough permission to view this post. We can say you do not have permission to access these resources or access this post. Okay, and for now we'll keep it here. We got the case study. You can do it for any number of status you want. At the end, if nothing is, if all these are bypassed, at the end what we can do is we can just say something went wrong. Okay, now if I refresh, it says something went wrong because it seems like the status that we are receiving is other than what we are actually. So we'll just status, we'll console log it. What else we getting in the console? It's undefined. Okay, status code. Is there a status code? Error dot code. Okay, error code. It's bad request. Okay, we're getting a bad request. That's why. So something went wrong works here. And what about status code? So request dot. What is the status code? Okay, it says 404. Let's do this here. Status. Here we go. This should get us the valid feedback. So if I refresh, so it's loading. There again something went wrong. Isn't it 404? What is the type of error request? Is it string? It's a number, and it is 404, correct? Okay, I got it. This was because I'm not returning from here. So actually it is setting the error to request not found. At the end it is setting it to something went wrong. So now we can see requested post was not found. Okay, now it's a valid error, people can understand it. So that's how you provide a reliable feedback to the people. Okay, I know it's like a lot of code here, you know, like searching for all this stuff, it's a lot of code, but yes, you have to do this. This is how you can improve your experience in your application, and people can actually understand what is going on. Now once they realize that the post was not found, they can properly give you a proper ID. Like, what is the proper ID right now? It can be 1. So now if I refresh, it's loading and it should fetch the ID. And you know, it's loading here, and then we're also having an error here. How to fix this? It's simple. What you can do is, at the return, you can add a return statement here. The cleanup, we can just say set error to null. You can do it here, or wait, what? Hold on. Why is the post throwing an error? Is the type any different one? The type is same. There's no issue with the type. Okay. Yes, correct. This won't work because we're not getting an array, right? So this was actually a demo that I was showing you guys. So this won't work because when you say 1, it will return you an object, it won't return array. So map won't work over there. So as I said, to clean up, what you can do is you can just say return. You can add a return statement here, okay, and then you can just say reset error to null. So what this will do is, because every time uservec runs, it will run the cleanup first, okay. So it will run the return statement, which will clean up all this stuff, and then it will run all this stuff, so that you will clear the error, and then you will start loading, and then you will start fetching the post. So this is a valid way for you guys to do an API request, okay. I know it's complex, isn't it? But isn't this very tedious? Imagine doing this with a very big application. Imagine having like multiple API calls in the same file, having 3 states for just one API call, and multiplied by 10 API calls. You'll have 30 states, right? 30 states, that's huge. I mean, you can reduce it. You can have some if conditions and you can just apply for the same error object. It's fine, but still it's not optimal. It's just workaround. Right, so how can we deal with that? That's why we have something called React Query. Okay, we have something called React Query. I mean, there are many other libraries you can use. Yeah, you can use React Redux Toolkit, that is similar to this. You can use Apollo Query, similar to this. You can use SWR from Next.js, if I'm not sure. You can use that as well. But my personal favorite is React Query. I've been using it from a long time. Okay. So what does React Query do? So it's actually called TanStack Query as well. It's a asynchronous state management for JS and TS applications. Okay. So what does it actually do? What is the whole purpose of this? Okay. So the thing is, you can see here, the React is often described as data fetching library. So we are right now thinking about fetching the data, right? So what it actually does is, it actually fetches the data, it caches it, it also synchronizes it, and updates the server state as well. So what does that mean? So when you fetch a data, right, if you're just using Axios, the only thing you're doing is request a server, get the data. If it fails, it fails. That's it. But React Query gives you a lot of things on top of it. It first caches the request. So if you're re-requesting the same thing again, it will return the cached request. Okay, you can disable it if you want. Okay, and you can also set the timing of the cache as well, whether you want it for 10 seconds or 15 seconds, something like that. You can set it as well. And it also retries. Retrying is a very huge thing. Okay, it's a really huge issue if you're implementing by yourself. It's not an issue, but it's very painful to implement. That's what I'm saying. React Query will implement all these things for you out of the box. Okay, and it has so many things. It also has updating out of date data in the background. So if in case, you can set intervals, you can say like update the data for every 15 seconds, and it will do it in the background automatically. You don't have to re-request for the data. You don't have to set the timing, like set timeout and everything. It will refetch the data, synchronize with the server every 15 seconds. If you define 10 seconds, it will do it for every 10 seconds. It also do that automatically. And you have a status to know when the data is out of date. So if you, for example, if you need like a Boolean status saying that the data is out of date and you want to update it so that you can provide a feedback to the user, you can do that as well. So there are a lot of things that React query gives you out of the box. And how to set it up? Just 2 lines of code. You'll actually see how easy it is. So install React query, okay, just npm I React query. I also have Axios here because to make API calls, of course. And if I go to page app.tsx, that's it. So I import React query on top, okay, React query client provider, and then I actually get the React query client, and then I use the provider. Done. 3 lines of code, we set up React query. That's how simple it is. Now let's make the same API call request with React query. Let's see how that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the same function here. I'm going to copy the lib and the helpers because of course we'll be needing those things here. Paste it here. Okay. And now we'll go to page index. All right. I'm going to do I'll remove all these things that I don't need here. Okay. And yeah. So here what we'll do is we don't need any states. We don't need the loading state. We don't need the post or any of those states. What I'm going to do is we'll just say const and we'll destructure it. So for now I'm going to say request. Okay, I'm going to remove this actually. For now I'm keeping it as request, or let's say query. Okay, and we'll import it. So we'll import something called use query. So we'll import a hook, React hook called React query called use query. So use query, okay, and then we'll say use query here, and you have to provide a key for it. Okay, key. It's actually query key. So what are we getting? We're getting all the post. So we'll say get. Sorry for the background noise, guys. I'm really sorry. Okay, so we'll just say get all posts. Okay, and then here we'll say query function, and this would be async. So this would be a function actually. So what is the function that we're accepting? What is the query function? We get all post, right? So I'm going to say get post. So importing from helpers. That's it. That's all we have to do. We have to just I don't have to invoke this as well. If I do this, it will run immediately because we're invoking it. You just have to pass the reference. Don't actually run it. Pass the reference. So now, and this should be a promise function. It should return a promise. The rule of this query function is whatever you pass, it should return a promise. And this is returning a promise of what? Posts. Okay, that's it. Okay, done. And now we'll remove this and destructure it. So what is the first thing you did back there? You had a state for post, right? And we'll have the same thing here. So this use query will output something called data. So data is where all of your things are stored. And what do you see over there? What is the type of the thing data you see over there? It's post or undefined. Already type safe. Why? Because in post, you already defined the promise of post, right? So it's already inferring that type internally and it's giving you a type safe data object. Okay, you can rename it actually. I'll rename this to posts. Okay, I'll rename this to post. You can add a colon and rename it. Okay, but it's like creating an alias. Okay, and now what is the next thing that I need? I need an error object, right? Error. There you go, error. And what is the next thing that I need? Loading. Is loading. There you go. You want a Boolean object if there's any error, you can say is error. And is fetching. So if you're actually doing a get request, you have to use is fetching. If you're doing a post or like writing write request, you have to use loading. So I'm going to remove loading here because we're doing a get request. So is fetching is what you have to use. So there you go. No states or anything. You have all the data you need. So you can just go here, go to the other code, the simple page index. Okay, copy this, come back, paste it here. Okay, so my phone just shut down, guys, so I think I won't be able to add my camera from now, I mean for the rest of the video, because the phone just went off. Apparently I forgot to charge it. So is fetching, so we'll just replace is loading with is fetching, so that will say loading. and here we have error. So here I'm gonna say error dot this error is unknown. So here we'll just do one thing, we'll just keep this aside, we'll see what is the error object that we get. Okay, and then this post will be, we'll just say post equals. So the reason why we have to do this here is this can be undefined as well, right? So React query will check whether it will say, hey, this can be post or this can be undefined as well, who knows. So you have to check whether the post is undefined or not. If it is not defined, if it is defined, only then you will do mapping. Okay, so now let's stop the simple server and run the complex server. So npm run dev, and there we go. We go back, refresh the page. You should see the same data with no changes. Hold on, it's loading. There we go. There we go. Got it. Same data. You saw the loading as well. No errors, right? And now what we'll do is we'll console log the error. So let's say log error. We'll see what is the type of data we get over there. So we'll go inside get post. We'll just mess up with the URL so that we get an error. So there we go. We got an error. Did we get an error? Refresh. Yep, we should get an error any second now. The beauty about this React query is it will keep on retrying multiple times. So there we go, 404 not found. So you can see, right, once, twice, thrice, and it will stop doing it again. So it retried to get the same request thrice. So that's the reason we have 3 API requests here. Okay, so you can disable it if you don't want this particular behavior. Okay, we can provide a config for that. And now it's same thing. We get the Axios error, same error here. So what we can do here is you can write a function for this. We'll write a function, utils get error message msg.ts. Okay, we'll export const. Basically we'll export a function that will actually get the error message for us. So export const get error message. So the type of error message that we'll be accepting is Axios error. Okay, and then whatever the code you had in the previous index file, right? Let's go to the simple index file. Whatever the code you had for error, you just copy paste it over there. So whatever the code we had here, we'll just copy this, come back to our get error message, paste it here, and instead of set error, we'll just return it. So we'll return the error message. That's it. There you go. Okay, and at the end we'll return something went wrong. So we'll go to complex index file. Okay, and then here, so fail to fetch. What is the error? We'll say get error message, and we'll pass this error as Axios. First we'll say unknown as Axios error. That's it. And this would be is error. There you go. So if the is error is true, we'll show fail to fetch the post and we'll get the error message. We'll pass the error object and then we'll just do this here. So it's loading. So let's see the output. It's loading. So we got the first retry, second retry, third retry, and then it should fail now. There we go. Post. Oh, sorry, I clicked on the screen. It started iterating again. So let me disable it. If I'm not wrong, it should accept another condition here. Retry once. So just retry once. What is this? Oh, sorry, you can pass it here. There you go. So now let's retry once. There we go. We have the error message saying that requested post was not found. Okay, so this is how you do it in the complex projects. So that, see, look at the line of code reduced. You don't have 3 states or anything. You can rename this as well. You can rename it to whatever you want. Let's say my own error or something. You can rename it to whatever you want, and you can use it properly. You can define the function. You can reuse the functions as well, and you can define the keys. These keys can be tracked as well. Okay, if you want to abort the function, let's say you have one more API call like this, and that API calls depends on the first API call. So you can also define that. You can say, I think it's enabled, and then you can say true. So instead of true, you can actually add like a boolean, and you can just say like a first API call value. So if the first API call returns the value, only then this boolean will become true, only then this API will run, or else this API won't run at all. So that way you can save a lot of time and a lot of conditions that writing by yourself. This is a really good way to write API calls in complex projects. Okay. So with that said, I'm really sorry with the camera, guys. I just want to record this as shorts as well. First I was trying to record for shorts for the first time. My camera went off because my phone got switched off due to battery issues. I hope you guys were able to understand the whole thing here. Okay, this is really very minor thing that people actually overlook. The error messages can be writing a descriptive error messages or adding a loading screens and everything, which impacts a lot. Okay, to be honest. And yep. With that said, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Let us know what you guys think on the comments. And in the next video, in the next episode, I'll teach you guys about error boundary. I'll be reusing the same code that I've written here. Error boundary is something like, let's say you forgot to catch the error here. Error boundary is like global error of like error file, or you can say page or something like that. So it will catch it over there. So if in case you ignore it, or if in case you miss some sort of error to catch it in your components, the error boundary will kick in. Okay, so we'll talk about error boundary in the next episode. Okay, with that said, thank you so much for joining, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.